Are you looking for a deep dive on this year's crop of rookie QBs? Do you want to get ahead of your league mates understanding which quarterbacks to target in this year's rookie drafts? Stick around as we dive into the strengths, weaknesses, and the fantasy outlooks of the big six quarterbacks of this year's draft class. Bo Nix, 6'2", 217 pounds, out of Oregon via Auburn. He is 23 years old. Yes, he is older than Trey Lance is right now. What do you make of Bo Nix? You know, as I said, 61 college starts, more than any other quarterback in the history of college. Do you think that's potentially a strength that we've got that level of experience, or is it a stick to beat him with for the fact that he's not been good enough to come out of college the last 2 years?
I think when you're as hyped as he was at various points, I think it's a concern, isn't it? Rather than this is a guy that didn't get a shot for a few years and then sort of finally made his way to the starting lineup and then put together a couple of years of decent production. You know, I think he was at Auburn. He was thought very highly of as a prospect, and it didn't quite work out there. I think there's some strengths to his game. I mean, he's almost like the opposite of JJ McCarthy. He is all arm when he throws, and he clearly has a very good arm, but he over relies on it, in my opinion. You know, I think he's got really funny mechanics. He looked to me like he threw everything off his back foot near enough. It was rare to see him. You know, he's very chest on in his style, and and it was very rare to see him step into his throws. He's a mobile to make plays. I didn't think he was a runner. I literally wrote that down, and he ripped off like a 60-yard run in one of the games I was watching. But apart from that, I didn't see a huge amount of rushing upside. It was more to buy time, and I think he did have some playmaking ability. I think the rush definitely bothers him, and I can see you got that on the slide there. But also, I felt like he was really quick to check down. You know, and it's hard to know, isn't it? And it's hard to know if you're not in the offense, if you don't know the offense. But you know, running backs and you know, he didn't give plays a lot of chance to develop kind of at times. And the only other thing that I really noticed that really kind of bothered me was he had a dangerous habit in my mind of when there was pressure, he would just keep backing up. He didn't seem to want to step up and buy his time or slide in the pocket. It was he would back, and then try and throw something off his back foot. And I think, you know, in the NFL, you don't get away with that. You know, you don't get away with that. Basically, Mahomes might every now and then, but even he gets found out with that one at times. So that is concerning to me. I mean, he for me is the sixth out of these six QBs. I have heard rumours, although it seems to have gone a bit quieter since the Senior Bowl, of first round. I don't see it, and I think since the changes on the fifth year for first round players has happened, you know, since it's not quite the bargain that it was, teams seem to be a little more reluctant to trade back up into the first to take these QBs. And I don't think there's obviously, you know, the teams that are drafting at the back of the first round usually don't need a quarterback for a good reason because they're good teams, and that usually means having a good quarterback. I couldn't see him as a first rounder, and then I think he falls a little bit into, and I really liked this guy last year, but it falls a little bit into like the Hendon Hooker kind of situation where you're a little bit like, where are you taking him and what are you going to get from him? Because it's not really a development QB league anymore, is it? I mean, I can't, you know, you get the odd one like Jordan Love, but generally now when teams take QBs, they take them in the first and they're going to play, or if they're not taking them in the first, they're kind of, right, you're a backup. There's not it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and I think you've hit the nail on the head there in terms of, to me, if you're taking a quarterback in the, you know, late first, second round with a view of developing them, normally you're looking for tools with some rawness that you think you can round out game. Bo Nix, as we said, 61 starts. He's a very experienced quarterback. I think we're probably about as close to the ceiling as we potentially can be. I don't know how much more there is. So if you're not drafting him to start him right away, I don't know how much more growth he's got. I think you said about his arm strength, and it's part of it is probably because he doesn't throw with good mechanics. But I saw some times where he was pushing the ball downfield, and it sat up there a little bit too long for my liking. I think he had to let the ball go early, probably a little bit earlier than he needed to, and that gave some DBs a chance. The ADOT is a real concern. Yes, some of that will be schematic, but 167 qualifying quarterbacks last year in college. He had the fourth lowest ADOT at 6.9 yards. Like that's pretty serious that he's, as you said, he is very quick to check down. The pressure is a real issue. I think part of that leads into his, frequency of how often he's checking down. But to me, it's such a massive issue in terms of not how you deal with pressure, because we know that pressure stats aren't sticky and they can come and go year on year and that kind of thing. But to me, if you're a player that is willing to stand in the pocket and can move around but keep your eyes downfield, that's massive. And that's a skill that translates to the next level. But I've never seen a quarterback that's got the level of hype of Bo Nix that stares at the pass rush and takes his eyes off his receivers as often as he does. He drops his eyes so frequently to look at the pass rush, and you can almost see it. He'll drop his eyes, he'll avoid a rusher, and then he almost has to look up and try and find where the receivers are again because he's taking his eyes off them. And I think that's a real concern for me, definitely at the next level.
I would be amazed if he went round one, like some people are talking about. I just don't see an elite QB prospect there. I just don't see someone, and like you said, I mean, I think his arm strength's good, but that's because it is all arm. He literally does not seem to throw with the rest of his body, which is actually more of a problem, and he obviously hasn't got the arm strength of someone like Drake May that at times does a similar thing. And I came into this, he was definitely 6 for me, and I feel like the more we've talked about him, the lower I've kind of got on him. That I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he has a long, successful NFL career. But if you're taking a guy who's that polished and NFL ready, if you're not taking him to be your starter, what are you taking him for? Because if he's going to go and sit on the bench for 2 years, that's just killing 2 years on his contract, and he's going to be a 25-year-old first-time starter. So I struggle to find the role for him because, I mean, I can't say if I know there's some QB needy teams at the top of the draft, and you end up with years where Christian Ponder goes high and Jake Locker and that crew, but if he goes high to one of those teams, he did not strike me as someone who could be carrying an offense. I mean, I'd be really surprised. I mean, I guess he could end up maybe, if it goes back round and he ends up in the second round and he ends up in a bit of a Will Levis situation like last year, maybe one of these teams like the Raiders or someone like that don't take a QB round one and they pick him up round two, maybe. Yeah. But again, if you're one of those teams, wouldn't you rather take a punt on someone a bit younger and a bit less? But I know a lot of these guys, I know a lot of the prospects that are going to be 2, 3, 4, in the rounds are older guys, aren't they? Because we're going to talk about the next one too. So
yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said. I think there's some real issues here. I think he is a good pre-snap processor, and I think that is definitely a thing he can hang his hat on. But I don't know if there's enough for me to get excited. So where he's probably going to be going in fantasy circles in terms of if he does get early day 2 draft capital, he's probably going to be in that second, third round, and it's just not a point that I can get excited about drafting.